Hey guys, how we doing? So we're doing another Mother's Basement video reaction, and we are watching a What's in an OP for Death Note. And it's called What's in an OP, Death Note's Heavy Christian Symbolism. Death Note's one of my all-time favourite animes, and of course I felt this would be really interesting to get into, because I feel like there's a lot that goes on in the intros for both. Like, there's two, isn't there? There's two OPs. So I'm really intrigued to see what Mother's Basement has to say on the matter with these OPs. So, let's get into it.
I'll be honest, I was a bit worried when, back in March, my patron Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin suggested I cover the Death Note openings and all of you voted for them. I didn't really want to do it, which is why it's taken me so long to get around to this next patron request video. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're very good openings with a lot to dissect, but I remember watching Death Note when I was younger and being phenomenally disappointed with how the story panned out. For a long time, until SAO came along, it was my benchmark for biggest disappointments in anime. And I wasn't looking forward to rewatching it at all.
Oh my god.
Which is my way of saying that even I can be dumb and wrong sometimes. Just because
God.
I'm the anime pope doesn't make me infallible.
Wow.
Death Note is fucking great.
Yes, it is.
Well-written, impeccably directed thriller built on great animation and phenomenal acting in both Japanese and English.
And the English is great as well.
It's not perfect. Nier and Mello feel kind of like 11th hour assholes.
Yeah, that was
the pacing
weird.
of the story after their introduction is atrocious, but even when it's bad, it's a very fun, campy kind of bad that's highly entertaining in its own right. And the good parts are really good, and stay good throughout the series. Two of the best parts are the openings, which are densely packed with symbolism.
I don't think I ever skipped the opening on Death Note for an episode.
Without further ado, let's talk about the first one. We'll definitely be getting to the second one at a later date. But first, some context. The first Death Note OP, The World, is an homage to Renaissance-era Christian artwork.
Of course.
There are several direct references, but outside of those, the shot composition and symbolic concepts all draw from those sources. It's also an immaculately shot and cut music video wherein every frame matches perfectly with the music, which is something that I don't want to get lost in all of the symbolism and analysis. The way that this OP builds up to a crescendo in order to get you hyped is profoundly impressive in its own right. That said, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We open on a thoroughly unconventional shot of Light Yagami's eyes shooting open, almost as though he's waking up. What makes the shot odd is that the following shots create the impression that Light is lying down, yet here he is looking straight downward. It's a very godly perspective to start from, almost like Light is painted on the ceiling of a chapel, and a not exactly subtle way of alluding to the godlike position to which he aspires.
The complex he has.
The red in his eyes is an equally unsubtle reference to the killing intent that he develops after finding the Death Note.
Yes, eventually.
Something that carries over to the main show as well, and something that Tomohito Ito borrowed for Erased. From here we flash back to Ryuk looking skyward in a washed-out cityscape. The clouds in the sky rush by as though in time-lapse. This is Ryuk before the events of the show, idling away year after year, bored out of his mind in the Shinigami world. We then see a grim-faced Light walking across broken tiles, and then an image of Ryuk's shadow looming over him as he lies on the ground. This is meant to contrast with the more godly image of him lying on the ceiling, and can be taken to allude to his position both in the beginning and end of the series. Lying in the dirt puts Light as far from godhood as he can get, and the looming shadow of Ryuk can be taken to represent either his corruption due to using the Death Note, or the inevitability that he will die at Ryuk's hands. This is followed by the most blatant illusion in the entire OP. A parody of Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam from the roof of the Sistine Chapel. The painting depicts Ryuk descending from the Shinigami realm to give Light an apple, the Death Note itself as we see at the end of the OP. The apple is also, of course, a very prominent symbol in Christian mythology, representing temptation and the original sin. A fitting metaphor given how the Death Note seems to erode Light's soul.
That's really good. I never thought about that.
Interestingly, Light is wearing the manacle that chains him to L in this image, indicating that perhaps this is meant to be the moment when he reclaims the Death Note after giving it up to divert suspicion from himself and Misa. The last thing that we see before the title is this impressive rotating shot shot of Light
Looks
staring
so
down
cool.
L atop some sort of platform.
There shall be a
city.
showdown.
We see Light standing on skyscrapers several times throughout the OP. Skyscrapers are a symbol of the modern world, and thus I think this imagery is a literal reflection of Light's ambition to be the god of the new world.
Yeah.
The inherent meaning of the shot, their showdown, is pretty obvious, but the craft that went into it is commendable regardless. The rotation around L and Light is incredibly smooth and well composited.
So cool.
It really looks as though they're rooted to these CGI objects, which is impressive considering that a show made 6 years later couldn't even manage that.
Oh dear.
On top of that, though, the models are also impressively detailed. It's relatively easy to do something like this if you're working like Masaki Yuasa with simplified styles, but doing it with line work and shading this complex is something else entirely.
Looks
it's
so good.
detailed that you can see the reflection of L in Light's eye. In L's eye, we see Light's reflection as well, imposed against an image of a wilting rose. Now, in Renaissance art, the rose symbolizes basically everything related to Jesus and a lot of stuff besides that, from his blood to his mom. But the emphasis on the thorny vines and Light's head brings to mind specifically the crown of thorns and a sense of martyrdom.
Wow.
So this could show L's perception of Kira's god complex, but it could also symbolize the fragility of Light's pride, or possibly his loss of innocence. After the title card plays, we see an apple, again representing the Death Note, falling from the sky. As the drum kicks, Light catches it, despite walking on a precarious high beam suspended above the city. Even before using the Death Note, Light put himself above the rest of the world. The high beam on which he's walking as he considers using it is a fairly direct representation of the mental balancing act that he's performing, and the danger of falling into madness, which, of course, he does.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell that the struggle is metaphorical because it's reflected within the apple that he's holding and staring at intently. Here we can see another biblical symbol, a flock of doves projected onto the wall behind Light. Like the rose, the dove is a symbol of lots of things, but here I think it represents the purity and virtue that Light sees in himself.
Yeah, obviously
whereas
he feels like he's
shadow
doing...
that he casts belies his true
he
nature.
thinks he's doing
Doves
right,
can also
but...
be interpreted as messengers of God, so this could also represent that Kira sees the Death Note as a sign. Either way, the important thing here is that the image is projected, not real. Next, we see Misa for the first time, lying splayed out on the ground, seemingly devoid of energy. This is probably her experiencing depression at the news that her parents' killer would walk free. But we can see in her eye a reflection of something in front of the moon. As we tilt up, we see that this is Light atop yet another skyscraper,
thought of that.
giving into temptation and taking his first bite of the apple, making his first kill with the Death Note.
Writing his first name in the book.
His killing spree as Kira is, of course, what saves Misa from her depression and gives her a sense of purpose. The actual moment where Light takes this first bite is built up to perfectly and has an incredible impact thanks to the music. As we cut to the building, the drummer starts tapping on the cymbals, counting down to the inevitable moment of truth, which is punctuated by a heavy drum kick. Then the tempo picks up as we pan across shots of the various pawns and observers of Kira and L's game.
The What's Up People intro?
Team, Watari, Naomi Misora, and Rei Penver, and a cadre of Shinigami. The Shinigami serve as an interesting point of contrast to the investigation team. Everyone on the team is looking off in a different direction, visibly flustered and confused as they try to pin down Kira, except for Soichiro Yagami, who looks straight forward, sternly.
Of course.
The Shinigami, meanwhile, are all leaning in with smiles on their faces, as though watching a show. The image of Naomi holding Rei's body is also interesting, because this pose is a take on the classic Christian art subject of the Pietà, or Lamentation. Mary cradling the dead body of Jesus. This particular pose most closely resembles Michelangelo's famous take on the subject. It's hard to draw precise parallels between Naomi and the Virgin Mary, but she does handle the death of her fiancé with an unusual serenity and grace under pressure, much like Michelangelo's take on Mary. As the music builds to a crescendo, we see Light feverishly writing names in the Death Note as prisoners around the world begin dropping dead. Within his mind, a glass effigy of himself drops and shatters. Looks like he couldn't hold his balance after all.
Ah.
The implication of this is that using the Death Note has obliterated Light, leaving only Kira. It's also possibly an allusion to the scene where he tells Ryuk that he wants to give up the Death Note and loses his memories, which would make sense at the next shot. The music kicks up, and a grinning Ryuk takes off into the night sky, revealing that he was standing in a cemetery representing the world of the Shinigami. A door opens in front of Kira, bathing him in light and blasting him back with wind as he struggles to step forward. Once again, we see Light and Kira staring each other down, this time in an underground hallway. The transition from one perspective of the standoff to another through the reflection in Light's eye is really something, but this time L's eyes aren't on him, they're on Misa. Misa wanders in a haze through the pouring rain, clearly haggard and exhausted. But then she stops and looks up expectantly to see Kira, her salvation, standing in the light in front of her. He reaches out his hand, beckoning her, and she limply extends her arm in turn. If I had to guess what part of the series this represents, I'd have to say it's the part where she's stuck underground being interrogated by L, and Light has to come save her. It seems like an act of mercy, but Light's face is shrouded in ominous shadow, and his expression seems smug and self-satisfied, not full of the warmth that you'd want from your savior. This shot transitions into a shot of Light standing in front of an angel painted in Renaissance style with a contemptuous smirk on his face. It really doesn't get much more arrogant than this.
No.
The painting behind him doesn't appear to be any specific painting from the Renaissance era. In fact, it would be odd if it was, because I'm fairly certain that the angel it's depicting is meant to be Lucifer rebelling against God and falling from grace.
Seems that way.
You wouldn't expect Renaissance artists to depict this moment so triumphantly. The angel's wings appear to be turning black as feathers fall off them, and behind them we see the sun set against the night sky. This brings to mind morning, and Lucifer's name literally means dawnbringer or morning star.
Oh, wow.
In more literal Latin, the name means lightbringer, and I don't think I need to explain the connection between that and Death Note's protagonist.
Go on.
This connection also fits Light's image as a good man who has fallen to evil. As the new day dawns, the last thing that we see is the apple, caught in the sun's rays on Light's desk, which then fades into the Death Note, which both makes for a great secondary title card, and cements the connection between the two objects, in case you were still wondering. Death Note's first OP is pretty much everything that I want from an opening.
So good.
It's layered with meaning, the animation is impressive, music rocks, and the show attached to it is pretty damn good too.
It's
a
amazing.
Damn sight better than most of the other ones that I watched when I was young. If you want to take a look at another good show from my youth, check out my video running down all of the OPs from Full Metal Alchemist and FMA Brotherhood. And if you like this sort of bold directing style, I recommend watching my analysis of Erased from director Tomohiko Ito, a student of Death Note director Tetsuro Araki. And if you enjoy any of these videos, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to catch every video I put out from here on. And follow me on Twitter at G0FFThu if you want the nitty-gritty on what I'm working on and what kind of nonsense I'm up to when I'm not working.
Cool.
Special thanks go out to my patrons for suggesting this and making it possible for me to do videos for a living in the first place. When I become the god of the new world, you will all be spared. As always, this is Jeff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.
That was cool, man. That was cool. Like, it's so cool to have people point stuff out that you missed. Like, yeah. That was awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. The apple obviously symbolizes, you know, like, temptation and that. Never thought about that. Like, Adam and the apple and that. And, yeah, that was a really cool thing to point out. The name. Lightbringer. Very wow. That was awesome. My mind's blown by that. That was amazing. Mother's Basement is so good at doing discussion things and pointing stuff out. It's amazing. So glad I checked that out. So yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, all of you guys, next time.